You know, a few years ago, I started reflecting on the past year as we begin the new year. And you're probably thinking, I really don't want to reflect on 2020. I want to forget it. And as I look around and see those that have suffered physically, I want to forget it. So I changed the title a little bit, a reluctant look back at 2020. First, let me say this. 2020 is not unprecedented. Not unprecedented as the media wants you to think it is. I've lived long enough. I remember 1968. Martin Luther King assassinated, Bobby Kennedy assassinated, 3 people running for president. Some people probably forget there was a third-party candidate in 1968, riots everywhere, Vietnam War, that we realized we couldn't win. I was 14 years old. 68 was a bad year if you go look at that. I mean, as far as in my lifetime. So it's not unprecedented. The media wants to sensationalize these things, and that'll probably come out in just a little bit too. But anyway, world events. Well, there's one world event that overshadowed everything else. The global pandemic. The Chinese virus. Now, YouTube may censor me because I said Chinese virus. We'll see when I go back through this. But it originated in China. But he knows the media kept trying to not say that. Coronavirus. COVID-19. COVID. That's what I call it. When I mention it in conversation, it's become part of the conversation. I call it the COVID, or maybe the virus. I remember Paul back last spring when he was doing it at home, schooling, and he had to make up a poem. And I helped him make this poem, see if I can remember. My name is Cyrus. I don't want to get the virus. So I wash my hands as they desirous. That was all I could think of. I think he got an A on that, but anyway. 84 million, and I updated, checked this yesterday, 84 million cases, about 2 million deaths. That's about a 2.3% death rate. They like that to be below 1% in situations like this. This worldwide. Not unprecedented. The 1918 Spanish flu is, in the last 150 years, it just dwarfs this. Worldwide, of course, record keeping what stood back in about 500 million cases. 500 million cases, 50 million deaths. That's a 10% death rate. And that's in addition to 40 million military and civilians dying in World War I. So you had 50 million, they think, dying of the flu, and it hit younger people instead of older people dying of the flu on top of the 40 million military and civilian casualties. And it researched the 1918 pandemic. It's interesting. It lasted from 1918 to 1920. Lord, don't let us be having to deal with this in 2022. In the U.S., obviously, COVID, 20 million cases, and last I looked, about 346,000 deaths. That's about a 1.7% death rate. Again, it's not unprecedented. 1918, they really don't know how many cases of the flu was in the U.S. But they do know there's about 675,000 people died. Again, an incumbent president losing an election. That's not unprecedented. It's not unprecedented. Racial tension, protests, riots, looting, a contentious election. That's not unprecedented. It's not unprecedented. That's the world, the USA. Let's look at the Methodist Church. The Methodist denomination had a general conference scheduled. I think it was back in May. They had to reschedule that. That is rescheduled for late August, early September. And a split is still very likely. Still very likely. In our family here, we lost 5 members. Larry McCall, Grace Hayes, Viola Marcingale, 101. Eugene Tyndale, 92, 93. Margaret Stevens, late 80s. Joel, she's about your age, I think. She's about 87, 88, something like that. But we lost those precious loved ones. But we gained 3 new members. Well, we don't gain 2, we've already officially welcomed one, Jay Lee, and we're going to be receiving in the membership Norris Rainwater and Gary Moss after the service. Average attendance down a little bit due to the COVID. Online viewing is up. Online viewing is up. And it's not about numbers. I have to report numbers. The denomination, I won't say requires me to do it, but I have to report numbers. In fact, I got to start doing the yearly report in January. Oh, that's fun. But hey, I get to report numbers, and I report numbers each week, average attendance. And I actually enjoy looking at it to see where we're at. Average attendance down, that's understandable. But if I look and see how many people are looking at the video of the service, that's generally up. That's generally up. So it tells me we're reaching people. It's not about numbers, but we need to know how we do it. We need to know we're reaching out to the community. I had somebody, as I said, that reached me out to the community. I had somebody tell me, said, we need to go up there and visit some of those people that are moving into this new subdivision. I said, my goodness, that's a good idea. I said, I'll go with you. I bet there's some other people in here that might go with you. I rode through that subdivision the other day. This is I'm preaching a 2-week-away sermon, but I visited that subdivision the other day, and in the parking lot was full right there in front of the model homes. Guess what? I saw a New Jersey tag. Hey, anybody from New Jersey, welcome to this church. Just like anybody from down the road. I preached 45 sermons in 2020. Here's a few of them. Be the church. I don't care in 2020, 2019, 2017, 2010, whatever. Be the church. The church is not this building. Who's the church? Y'all remember that from back in February, I think, when I preached that sermon? What's the church? Huh? Not this building, is it, Connie, that you've been coming to all your life? But y'all, does this building make it feel special? It's a pretty decent building. You make it special. You're the spirit that's here. That's the reason. Have faith, not fear. Man, I struggle with that. Still struggling with it. Have faith, not fear. Fine balance there. You'll hear more of that about written and risk management next week. there on that front porch, and as loud as my preaching voice could get, heal our land, Lord, I repeat that. Heal our land from this plague that is upon us. Set us free from it. There will be signs regarding the second coming of Christ. Are you rapture ready? The wrath of the Lamb. Be a veteran of Christian service. You and I had that little bit of a discussion about that the other day. Seven messages from home. I realized that I didn't like sitting down. First couple of ones sitting down, so I borrowed one of these, took it home and set it up and stand up and like I was preaching to that camera, that blue camera there, and I imagined y'all's faces in that camera, and I was preaching to that camera. And I got a little bit more worked up when I did that. 7 of them at the house. That included Palm Sunday and Easter. The weather, best I remember, was terrible. Those 2 Sundays, we couldn't have had an outside service. 5 outside, I think that everybody generally liked those. And who knows, we may do that again if the weather allows that. Pentecost message was out there on the front porch. Best I can tell, there was 3 Sundays where we didn't have a service or a sermon. So I think that's pretty good. You know, hopefully you find the messages helpful and inspiring. You know, I think I'm a pretty fair preacher. I watch them each time and I impress myself at times. But then I'm like, oh man, you should have said that, and you should have done that. And but hopefully you find it somewhat inspiring and helpful. I put a lot of time, thought into the messages. Good things about, you know, Cindy thought personally, you know, 2020, if you weigh it, I think it's going to weigh on the downside more than the upside. Am I wrong on that? Come on, y'all need to give me you know, if you, the good and the bad of 2020, well, I'm going to tell you a good thing. I put in my notes and said, what's something good about 2020 out there? It was left blank. Nothing come to mind. And then one day, I was sitting there watching the scroll on the news, and it said, the Dow Industrial Average, 30,000. I said, yeah. The stock market reached a record high. Now, folks, let me tell you, I think you know this. If you have a 401k, and I'm not talking politically here, I'm talking pure fun. If you have a 401k, if you have an IRA, if you have a pension, it's somehow, some way tied to the stock market. If the stock market goes up, then generally you're going to see an increase in what you have. So the stock market was one of the bright points of this year. But most would agree that 2020 was not a good year. All right. Do you think 2020 overall was a good year? Raise your hand. Okay. Good. Okay. Do you think it was a bad year overall? Okay. And I'm not trying to be, I'm just trying to get the feel for what you think. It was, from my perspective, it was disappointing, depressing, Should we have church? Should we not have church? You know, one of our more elderly people gets it. You worry. Others, you hear others. They don't get sick. Because it's all over the place. What should we do? Should we not? And I'm making phone calls, calling people and say, leaders in the church, should we have church? Should we not? Some say, yeah, we would do it. Some say would. Yeah, you know. So it's all over the place. I don't take I don't pastorally as your pastor. I don't take that lightly. But praise be to God. Lord, just let us again get through this. You know, I believe we should look back to the past, see if there are any lessons we can learn. That's what the main reason. In my experience, Norma, there's lessons to be learned. Don't repeat bad experiences. I know that's, nobody wants to catch COVID. And so it's probably making us more, those that have, more precautious as I look at it. That's risk management. But this scripture tells us not to dwell on the past. Isaiah 43, 18 and 19. Do not call to mind the former things, or ponder the things of the past. Behold, I will do something new, and now it will spring forth. Will you not be aware of it? I will even make a roadway in the wilderness, rivers in the desert. Now, obviously, Isaiah was prophesying to Israel, but it also applies to us. You can look back at the past and see if there's any lessons to be learned. But don't dwell on the past. It's what this is straight from the Bible, and I think it applies. Don't dwell on the past. Look back and see if there's any lessons to be learned. And I think there's lessons to be learned. But don't dwell on the past. Look forward. Look forward to what God has for you in the future. I like to think of myself as a forward-looking person. Yeah, I think look back at the past, hey, my goodness, I wish I had done that, I wish that had happened, whatever. But I also like to think forward. What's God going to do for me and for you in this church in the future? That old saying, I think our best times are ahead of us, individually and as a church. Don't be surprised if God does something great for you in 2021. I think when I preached this sermon at the end of 2021, the first of 22, golly, life's going by fast. You know, short of some kind of world catastrophe, nuclear war, some kind of stuff like that, you know, I think it's going to be a better year. Because I think the virus, I don't think it's going to take 2 years like it did in 1918. I think we'll be on the other side.